Forget what you think you know about the Frog Prince. This story has nothing to do with a magical kiss. In reality, it's a sanitized remnant of a terrifying ancient belief that a desperate bargain with a water spirit could lead to a monstrous curse. We all remember the spoiled princess and the helpful frog, but what if the story's most famous details, the golden ball, the broken promise, and the violent transformation, are actually clues to a dark ritual? We picture a beautiful princess in a pristine castle, sadly dropping her golden ball into a picturesque well. A friendly, talking frog appears. He makes a simple deal. He'll retrieve her toy if she promises to be his friend. She agrees, but quickly forgets her promise, disgusted by the amphibian. The story, as we often remember it, ends with a gentle, transformative kiss. It's a simple lesson about looking past appearances and the importance of keeping one's word. But this gentle version is a modern invention. The original tale collected by the Brothers Grimm is far more brutal and strange. There is no kiss. The princess doesn't learn her lesson through kindness. She learns it through fear. Let go of the image of a friendly creature. In the original, the frog is a demanding, almost menacing force that invades her home, her dinner plate, and finally, her bedroom. You could hardly call this a romance. In fact, it's closer to a home invasion. Forget the magical kiss. In the oldest and most influential version of the tale, the frog's transformation is triggered by an act of extreme violence. The princess, in a fit of rage and disgust, hurls the frog against the stone wall of her bedroom as hard as she can. It is this brutal act, not a kiss, that breaks the spell. This single shocking detail is our first major clue. It tells us that the magic at the heart of this story isn't gentle or romantic. It's primal, violent, and tied to rules we no longer understand. Does that sound like the story you remember from childhood? The magic in this ancient tale has nothing to do with love's first kiss. What we're actually looking at is a distorted memory of how to break a curse. I believe this violent act is the key that unlocks the entire story's hidden meaning, a meaning far older than the Grimm's Book of Fairy Tales. It points to a forgotten world, one where promises to strange creatures were binding, and where breaking them had terrifying consequences. So we're doing more than just rereading a story. We are, in fact, uncovering a fossil, a remnant of a belief system that has been buried for centuries. And the first step is to treat this tale not as a fantasy, but as a collection of evidence. The story always begins with the princess losing her golden ball. Why gold? In folklore, gold is often more than just treasure. It represents purity, royalty, and perfection. But more importantly, it's a symbol of the sun, a celestial object. The well or spring, in contrast, represents the underworld or the realm of spirits. When the golden ball falls into the dark water, it symbolizes a sacred object being lost to another world. The princess thinks she's just playing a game. But what's really happening is that she has accidentally made an offering to the ancient, powerful beings that dwell in the deep. Trying to get it back is far from a child's game. This has become an unwilling negotiation with a supernatural entity. Think of it. She drops a piece of the sun into the dark earth. This is a powerful symbolic act. It's a transaction. The entity that answers from the depths isn't a friendly animal. It is the guardian of that realm, and it now has a claim on what she has offered. She has, without realizing it, opened a door between worlds and must now pay the price of admission. The frog doesn't ask for a kiss. He demands companionship, to eat from her plate, drink from her cup, and sleep in her bed. These aren't random requests. They are ancient rites of binding and acceptance. Sharing a meal was a deeply symbolic act of creating a bond, a form of ancient contract. If you like deep dive like this, you can create a bond with this channel by clicking subscribe. By eating his food or sharing hers, a person became linked to the supernatural. The king's stern insistence that she keep her promise, even when it terrifies her, is another clue. He understands something she doesn't. Breaking an oath made to a being from the other world, even one that looks like a frog, could bring ruin. He's doing much more than teaching her a lesson in manners. In reality, he's practicing damage control to avert a supernatural crisis. He recognizes the gravity of her words. A promise is a promise, especially one made at a place of power like a well. He forces her to honor the deal not because he's a stern father, but because he is a terrified king who knows that the prosperity of his entire kingdom could be at risk if an ancient power is disrespected. It really makes you wonder, what would you have done in the king's position? The frog's relentless pursuit of the princess is chilling. He follows her from the well to the dining hall, and finally, to her bedroom. The bedroom, in any castle, is the most private and protected space. It is her sanctum. His entry into it is a violation, a crossing of the final threshold. This has nothing to do with friendship. This is about possession. He is asserting a claim over her, one she unwittingly agreed to. This escalation of intimacy is designed to be unsettling, highlighting the power imbalance. The frog holds all the cards because he operates by ancient magical rules the princess foolishly ignored. Each step he takes closer to her is a deeper entanglement in the curse. First her plate, then her cup, and finally her bed. He is methodically taking over her life, integrating himself into her most personal rituals. The story builds this tension to show us that she is losing control, becoming subsumed by the pact she made. He is not a suitor. He is a predator closing in on his prey. This brings us back to the story's climax. The princess throwing the frog against the wall. Why would such a violent act lead to a reward? Because it wasn't about breaking a spell of enchantment. It was about breaking a curse of possession. In many ancient traditions, a physical, often violent shock was believed to be necessary to expel a possessing spirit or break a hex. This act of violence can be interpreted as a form of folk exorcism. In that moment, she's certainly not attacking a future husband. Instead, she is desperately trying to purge a monstrous entity from her life. The transformation isn't a reward for her cruelty, but an unintended consequence of a ritual she didn't even know she was performing. Her rage gives her the power to finally fight back. She is not a damsel in distress waiting for a prince. She is a woman pushed to her limit, who uses primal force to reclaim her sacred space and, ultimately, her own soul from the clutches of an otherworldly being. These clues, the lost sun symbol, the binding oath, the invasion of a sacred space, and the violent exorcism, paint a picture far darker than a simple fairy tale. They are fragments of a much older story, one that has been misunderstood for generations. Each detail we've examined is like a piece of a puzzle, and when we put them together, they stop telling the story of a girl who learns to love a frog. Instead, they tell the story of a desperate human encounter with the supernatural. They all point to one, even more ancient central figure that has been forgotten by time. These clues lead us to the true identity of the frog, a powerful and dangerous water deity. And to understand that, we have to dig deeper into the world of ancient curses, forgotten gods, and the very real magic that our ancestors believed governed their world. What we have uncovered so far is just the surface. Now we dive into the well. Long before fairy tales, nearly every ancient culture had stories of powerful spirits dwelling in springs, wells, and rivers. These spirits were a far cry from cute animal sidekicks. They were seen as deities. The Romans had Coventina, a goddess of wells, while the Celts had Sulis at the hot springs of Bath. These places were seen as portals to the otherworld. Dropping an offering, like a golden object, into a spring was a common practice to ask for a favor or appease the resident spirit. The princess's game perfectly mirrors these ancient rituals. She didn't lose a toy. She made an accidental offering, and in doing so, became indebted to a powerful pre-Christian entity. Archaeologists have found thousands of offerings in these sacred wells and springs across Europe. Coins, jewelry, even weapons. People gave what was most valuable to them to the powers that lived in the water. The princess's golden ball fits this pattern perfectly. It was an object of immense value, a symbol of her royal status, making it a worthy offering. She wasn't just playing fetch. She was participating in a religious act whose meaning had been lost to her time, but whose power remained very, very real. The creature that answered her was not an enchanted man. It was the ancient guardian of the well, coming to collect on the offering it had been given. Why a frog? In many cultures, frogs are liminal creatures. They exist in two worlds, water and land. This made them powerful symbols of transformation, fertility, and the link between the mortal world and the spirit world. In ancient Egypt, the goddess Heket, who guided souls into the afterlife, had the head of a frog. For the Olmec and Maya, frogs were associated with rain gods, controlling the life-giving waters. This creature wasn't chosen randomly for the story. It was a clear symbolic representation of a supernatural being with power over both life and the mysterious underworld. The princess had no idea she was dealing with an enchanted prince. Her negotiation was actually with a gatekeeper. The frog's croak was thought to herald the coming of rain, making it a creature that could literally call down power from the heavens. Its ability to live beneath the water connected it directly to the hidden world of spirits. So when a frog emerges from the well, it's not an animal. It's an avatar, a physical form taken by the spirit of the place, coming to negotiate with the mortal who has disturbed its domain. The story is part of a much wider, global folkloric tradition known as the animal bridegroom tales. However, the frog variant often carries a darker undertone. Folklorists have cataloged numerous tales where a woman is forced to marry a supernatural being in animal form, often from a body of water. Breaking a promise to such a creature could result in a curse, drought for the village, infertility, or a monstrous transformation. The frog's demands to eat from her plate and sleep in her bed are echoes of a ritualistic consummation of this unwanted bond. His demands have nothing to do with friendship. What he is actually doing is claiming his bride, as was his right under the ancient magical law she invoked at the well. In many of these related myths, the union between a mortal woman and a water spirit ensures the fertility of the land. The princess, as royalty, represents the kingdom itself. Her forced marriage to the frog could be a distorted memory of a ritual meant to ensure rain and good harvests. But in this later, more fearful telling, the sacred marriage has become a terrifying curse. A violation of the natural order rather than a preservation of it. This brings us to the core of the ancient truth. So the story is not about a prince who was cursed to be a frog at all. The original hidden meaning reveals something far more shocking: the frog. The prince who appears at the end might not have been in the frog all along. Instead, the princess's violent act of desperation, a folk exorcism, didn't just break the frog's power, it inverted it. The magical energy of the curse, when shattered, had to go somewhere. It created the prince as a reward, a manifestation of the appeased spirit's gratitude for being released from its own form through her defiance. In some versions of the tale, the frog's skin is burned, another common motif in stories where a supernatural being's animal form is destroyed to reveal their true one. The story is a mythological instruction manual, how to break a pact with a water spirit without dying. The key to breaking the spell was never a kiss or an act of love, The real solution was an act of violent refusal. She had to reject the pact with such force that it shattered the magic itself. This is a profound shift in meaning. The tale isn't about accepting the ugly exterior to find inner beauty. It's about fighting a monstrous aggressor with everything you have to reclaim your freedom. The prince is not the point of the story. He is the after effect, the proof that the curse has truly been broken and the balance restored. The Grimm's tale ends with a bizarre detail often cut from modern retellings: the prince's loyal servant, Iron Henry. Henry had 3 iron bands placed around his heart to prevent it from breaking with grief when his master was turned into a frog. As they ride away, the bands snap off one by one. Iron, in European folklore, is a potent ward against evil spirits, fairies, and magic. Henry's iron bands symbolize a mortal's defense against supernatural sorrow. Their breaking signifies the curse is well and truly over. This might seem like a quirky detail, but it's really the final piece of evidence, confirming the story's deep roots in folk magic and beliefs about protection from otherworldly forces. The curse was so powerful, it took a magical metal to contain the grief it caused. Iron was believed to repel the fae, or magical beings. The fact that Henry's heart is bound in it suggests the curse was of a magical, otherworldly nature. The snapping of the bands is an audible physical sign that the supernatural threat has been neutralized. It's the final sigh of relief, a signal that the characters have safely returned from the dangerous realm of magic to the mundane world of mortals. How did this terrifying tale of appeasing an ancient water god become a children's story? As Christianity spread across Europe, the old pagan gods and nature spirits didn't just disappear. They were demoted. They became the fairies, goblins, and monsters of folklore. A powerful water deity became a cursed, slimy frog. The ritual for breaking a supernatural pact was reframed as a lesson about keeping promises. The story was sanitized, its dangerous magical core hidden beneath a moral lesson, palatable to a new world view. The Frog Prince is a perfect artifact of this transition, an ancient pagan belief wrapped in a medieval fairy tale's clothing. This process, called euhemerism, happened all over the world. The old ways were not erased, they were rewritten. The gods became kings, the spirits became enchanted creatures, and the complex rituals became simple moral lessons for children. The Frog Prince is one of the clearest examples we have of this process in action. It's a ghost story, a memory of an older, wilder world that we have tried to tame by calling it a fairy tale. At its heart, this investigation reveals a universal human truth. We are fascinated and terrified by the unknown depths, both of the water and of our own promises. Ultimately, the story of the Frog Prince is about so much more than a girl and an amphibian. It's truly about the terrifying power of words, the danger of making bargains with forces we don't understand, and the primal, often violent lengths we will go to reclaim our sovereignty. It reminds us that beneath every simple story lies a deep and often dark pool of ancient fears. The princess's journey is a warning that echoes through time. Be careful what you promise, especially at the edge of the water, because you never know what ancient power might be listening. The story endures not because it's a sweet romance, but because it taps into a fundamental fear of the binding nature of our own words and the hidden world that enforces those pacts. But the dark secrets of our childhood stories don't stop in the enchanted forest. They stretch deep into the jungle. Disney never told you about the one revenge Mowgli took that was so brutal it was hidden. To uncover the Jungle Book's darkest chapter, click the video on your screen now.